We start with the Nations League, and France are the champions after beating Spain 2-1 in the final. But there was controversy, wasn't there? Kylian Mbappe was offside when he scored the winner, but VAR allowed the goal because the ball through to him touched Eric Garcia. Kyle, starting with you, what did you think of it?
Well, I put my thoughts on social media and got quite a lot of backlash from Spanish fans, or French fans, I should say, and then Spanish fans as well. They were going back and forth all evening long because it was offside. He was in an offside position. But if you look at the rules, and I do know the rule, but that is what I was getting a lot of stick for as well. It's just unfortunate for Eric Garcia. It does feel like he's gone to play the ball, like Jamie Redknapp said in the analysis last night. What is he meant to actually do? Is he meant to judge himself that Kylian Mbappe is offside, look behind him quick and say, oh no, he's 6 inches offside, I'm not going to go for this ball? It's the UEFA Nations League. People will say that actually it's not the biggest of competitions, but they still want to win it. And for Spain, it would have been a great competition to win. So for Eric Garcia, obviously he's going to go for the ball. He wants to stop Kylian Mbappe from getting in on goal. So he goes for it. It slightly touches him, and that then creates a second phase of play. I think once again, it's the rules sticking to them by the letter of the law. I completely understand that, but it's meant that ultimately he was offside. It's not offside. There's confusion amongst football fans. There's confusion amongst footballers as well, and nobody really knows the offside rules once again.
Rob, what did you think? Was it a bad refereeing decision, or is Kyle right? He just had to stick to the rules, and maybe the rule isn't quite right.
Yeah, I mean, I always have a bit of sympathy with officials when people say, oh, why have you done that? Why have you made that decision? They can't go anywhere other than really following the letter of the law, because ultimately the refereeing decisions, the decisions that the VAR makes, are assessed by people above them, whether it be the PGMOL and Mike Riley in the Premier League, or whether it be UEFA. They will sit down this morning and people will talk to Anthony Taylor, who was the referee, and Stuart Atwell, who was the VAR, and say, you got this decision right by the letter of the law. Now, Stuart Atwell can't just sit there and follow his own interpretation. He's offside. And as Kyle says, poor old Eric Garcia is almost being punished for his own athleticism, for sticking his leg out, having enough stretch on there to get his foot to the ball, and then Kylian Mbappe does the rest and finishes it. But it is the rule that is wrong, and then the rule needs to be changed to reflect the way that the game works, and that you shouldn't ever be punished for being able to get across to the ball, cut it out and stop it. Because if he's a little closer to it, he stops it, and then Kylian Mbappe doesn't get the ball, and everyone's saying, what a great piece of defending by Eric Garcia. So you sort of can't have it both ways, that you reward it if he gets there on the stretch, but if he just doesn't quite make enough contact, Kylian Mbappe is allowed to go through and score.
Controversy aside, Rob, who impressed you?
Oh, Gabi, 17-year-old Gabi. He's turned 17 in August, which is thoroughly demoralising for everyone, isn't it? But he's part of a really exciting new era of Spanish football, and that's the thing that I thought last week. I know we'll go on to debate the merits of the Nations League as a whole, but for a Spanish team that seemed very much at the start of a cycle, the opportunity to play competitive games against teams like France seems to far outweigh wandering around in a pointless friendly. So Gavi, I think Luis Enrique after the semi-final called him a special case. Well, he's definitely that, isn't he? He looks absolutely to the manner born at 17. They've got Pedri at 18, Ansu Fati at 18, Dani Olmo to come back into that team. It's an incredibly exciting time for Spanish football. And Gavi, just like Phil Foden, I know we're going to talk about him later, but in the game against Liverpool for Man City last week, he just looks so at home on the biggest stage of all. So yeah, Gavi would be the pick from last night's game for me, for sure.
So Kyle, the future looking bright for Spain, but how good are France looking right now? Because the World Cup's only just over a year away.
Yeah, after a disappointing Euros as well by France's standards, coming off an incredible World Cup win in 2018, they're going to be looking at the next World Cup and thinking, well, what can we actually do? How can we build off this? And look at the squad that they've got. I mean, Paul Pogba, once again, in that French team, he just looks unbelievable. Manchester United fans must be watching him and thinking, that is the Paul Pogba that we want, because he dictates the play. He's all over. He's creating moments of magic for France, game in, game out. And then you look further ahead, Karim Benzema, you've got Kylian Mbappe as well. I mean, they are such a special team. So going forward into next year, if they can keep this, if they can keep moving forward and keep progressing at the rate that they are and tweaking things, because it's never going to be perfect. They definitely learned a lot from the Euros this summer. If they can keep on moving forward, I think that they could be in contention to keep hold of that World Cup moving forward.
And Rob, we saw Raphael Varane went off with an injury. Just how big a blow do you think this is for Manchester United, who are already without Harry Maguire?
Yeah, potentially massive, isn't it? Because Manchester United, when we looked at the fixtures back in June, had a decent start to the season, and they've already dropped points against Southampton, Villa at home, Everton at home. You look at their next 7 Premier League fixtures in the mix, you've got Leicester, Liverpool, Tottenham, Man United, Arsenal, all in there. So this would be an awful time for United to be without both Raphael Varane and Harry Maguire. We know the sort of weaknesses and fallibilities of Eric Bailly and Victor Lindelof. I was reading, apparently it might be an abductor muscle, which could be sort of minimum 2 weeks. So you could miss at least a couple of games. The next 2, as said, against Leicester and Liverpool. It's not been the easiest of starts to the season for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. At the moment, it's looking like he's sort of still trying to work out the best combinations he has in attack. There's no doubt about what the best combination is at centre-half. It's Varane and Maguire. And with the pressure already seemingly increasing on the Man United manager, this would seem a pretty bad time to be without one, if not both of them.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have an update today, hopefully maybe, on Varane. But earlier in the day in the Nations League, Italy beat Belgium to finish 3rd. That was not the major talking point, though. Belgium goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois criticised the schedule, and he said, I quote, "We are not robots. It's just more and more games and less rest for us, and nobody cares about us." He also, Kyle, suggested that the 3rd, 4th playoff was solely for financial reasons, that they shouldn't have had to play it. We have, by the way, contacted UEFA for comment to get their right to reply. But Kyle, do you agree with Courtois?
I mean, maybe it's not about agreeing or disagreeing, it's about just listening to the players. They're the ones that are actually playing the game. And I think time and time again, they are raising these issues around things they're going through within football. And it's very easy for the media, for us to talk about it. Now, this isn't the voice of every single footballer. I'm sure there's footballers who would want a European Championship, that would want a World Cup every year. So they've got a major tournament to be competing in. But maybe we have to listen to Courtois. Time and time again, we see injuries, we see players picking up those, and it means that it affects club football as well. Then you take into the case of their mental health and actually how it might be affecting them. I think that we need to be listening, and these organisations need to be listening to the footballers, because they must feel like, or Thibaut Courtois must feel like a robot. He must feel like he's only being taken for his body and just being used. And I know that people watching this, or people will have the opinion after Thibaut Courtois has made these comments, that they get paid a lot of money. They're footballers. People would dream to have the job that he has. He's lucky to have it. I understand why people might think that, but also you have to remember that these are human beings. And actually, they are talking about these issues. They're raising these issues because it obviously means a lot to him. Now, when it comes to UEFA, when it comes to the finances around that, people will have different opinions. And it'll be interesting to know, well, if the footballers have got these opinions, what are they going to do about it? Who are their representatives? Who are they talking to at UEFA? How are they communicating with UEFA? Because ultimately, everyone who loves football wants what is best for the sport. We want to see high quality, top quality football. We want to see the best players in the world. We want to experience all of that. And that is only going to happen when the footballers are happy, when there's communication on both sides. So I hope that UEFA and all these organisations actually listen to the footballers, and they start to actually communicate with each other, because we all want what's best for the sport, and that is the footballers being happy, plenty of high quality football, and everyone on the same page.
Rob, do you think that Roberto Martinez should have rested Courtois if he felt that strongly about it, or is this not just a Courtois issue? Is this just a general player issue?
Yeah, I think it is a general player issue, 100%. Obviously, that is a conversation that if Thibaut Courtois, we don't know whether he did go to Roberto Martinez and said, look, I don't want to play in this game. I find it difficult to believe that someone like Roberto Martinez would have said, if he'd have gone and really said, I'm tired, I don't want to play, that he would have, forced him out there onto the pitch. yeah, I think a lot of the points that Kyle makes are absolutely bang on. Look, if you have a business idea, and admittedly I'm only basing this on watching The Apprentice for a good few years, but you go out with your business idea and you do a bit of market research. So you look over the last, I don't know, year or so, Arsene Wenger says, we should have a World Cup every 2 years, Then, Alexander Seferin or UEFA say, do you know what we're also going to do? We're going to try and expand the Champions League. And both times, not just players, but you've heard club managers as well, Pep Guardiola being one, Jurgen Klopp being another, saying, you are killing the players here by doing this, by extending this competition and extending this competition. So it seems balmy that you then get to a point where people within positions of power, often for financial reasons, you would suspect, whether it be FIFA or UEFA, whoever, say, well, we're going to ignore what the most important part of that product says, the players and the managers, and we're going to carry on with doing it anyway. I know we're probably going to get onto the Andorra game after the break, but part of my sort of the biggest areas for me to get on my soapbox about with cutting down games is playing qualifiers against teams that aren't capable of challenging. Now, I think that you could streamline any sort of, particularly a European qualifying competition. What benefit are England getting from playing 4 qualifiers, 2 against Andorra and 2 against San Marino? Unfortunately, because of the size of the country, they are nations that are just never, ever going to be capable of improving enough to be a serious threat or seriously competitive in those qualifying campaigns. So I think there needs to be some sort of pre-qualifying for the smaller nations to be brought in, and therefore there's maybe an area you can lose just a few games throughout the calendar.
Yeah, if I'm honest with you, there is a kind of idea that pops into my head that when it comes to the international breaks, rather than having several international breaks interspersed, to keep momentum, all of the qualifiers could be done over the space of one period of time, and that would also give the clubs a chance to rest their players elsewhere as well. But that's just one idea that I've got to admit, Rob, I haven't done my market research on that one, but just a little idea there, just to keep the momentum going for both the league.
You'd be fired for that lack of market research.